Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about The Rain, the 2018 show that came on Netflix. This content is filled with spoilers for Season 1 of The Rain. Alright, so The Rain is it's a post-apocalyptic series that I just finished watching on Netflix. It was released in 2018 on Netflix. I'm pretty sure it was on internationally in Europe prior to this, probably a year or two ago, okay? And The Rain is quite interesting. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very good series. It's 8 episodes long. That length is very European, like Season 1, Season 2, Season 3 of Sherlock. Most of the BBC content is like 6 episodes. This is not BBC content. This is specifically Danish. All right, my wife looked it up and found that it was Danish content. And I have to say, it's the best Danish show I've ever watched, without exception, right? So, basically, it's really interesting. So, I really liked it for a lot of reasons. Here are the reasons. I would say it's a 4 out of 5 star television show. That's my rating for the show. The reason why is I would say, okay, so number one thing I loved about The Rain was they told you why the apocalypse occurred. The whole show was about why the apocalypse was occurring, okay? And I thought that was fantastic. And the reason why is I am very skeptical of any author that says the why isn't important. I'm growing in a dislike of that type of content where like, oh, it's just a post-apocalyptic shrug, not sure why. Like, if you don't know the genesis of your crisis as the author, how are you really going to write a strong story, right? And that, you know, that to me is just absolutely critical. And actually, I almost think it's like a life lesson, right? Like, if you really are okay not knowing what happens at the beginning, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with that lack of drive to have an answer for what happens at the beginning, right? That is a fundamental nature switch, right? Some people are like, I'm okay not knowing what happened at the beginning, and others are like, no, I want to know what happened at the beginning, and I'm going to take a look at the evidence, and I'm going to decide what happened at the beginning, and I'm going to choose what happened at the beginning, and say this is what I believe based on what I've seen and on my experience. And like, it's just such a fundamental nature question. The nature of a person happens with, I think there's just something fundamentally wrong with not having desire to know what happened at the beginning. And so this show is saying, hey, we have this post-apocalyptic situation. Here's the reason why this occurred. And that's just absolutely critical to me. Like, it really makes the story much, much, much better, right? So that's one of the reasons why I liked it. I love the fact that it was Danish. And the reason why is it's so different than an American television show. Just everything about it is different. Like, their perspective is different. The pace of the show is different. The structures of how characters are built. A lot of the show happened in the forest, right? Like, and so, like, getting the idea that the people who made this are more interested in the outdoors than most American shows are. Like, American shows, you really don't see people in forests for long periods of time, right? It's just really, really interesting. So they're American shows, because they're American, they have this veneer of Americanism across them, which I love. But this is really distinct because it lacked that, and it made every single thing different. It made, how the characters move different, how the characters talked different, the structure of the story, the settings that you saw, the vehicles that you saw, the tools that you saw, everything. Everything was different, you know what I mean? Which I thought that was very, very interesting. I liked how this was not a zombie story. It was really, it was definitely a post-apocalyptic story, but there weren't zombies in this, and no one in the story, and the authors of the story didn't really feel that they needed to replace zombies into the story, which I'm like, okay, I get that, right? So I really, really enjoyed this. The only thing I think I didn't, the only reason why I took a star off is American shows are American shows. And so one of the things that, you know, whenever I see international content, it always kind of amazes me who is cast, right? Because essentially, you know, one of the things, every now and then you'll see a superstar in an international content, but a lot of times when I watch international content, I look at the people on the screen, and many of the main characters, I'm like, this person wouldn't even make the cut for an extra in America, right? It's just, it's, I guess, you know, maybe we take acting more seriously here or something, but I think overall, the level of acting in American content is higher, in my opinion, than what I see in international content generally. You know, of course there are exceptions, but this actually suffered a little bit from that, right? Some of the main characters, I'm like, I don't know if they'd even make it as an extra on most American shows, right? You know, they would have been cut and replaced with somebody else. So, so that, you know, that's my overall rating. I'm just gonna give a little bit of a summary of what the story's about. So the story is about Simone and Rasmus, and Simone and Rasmus are brother and sister. And I think so they never really tell you direct, but I think Simone is like maybe 23 and Rasmus is 18, right? So college age, so start, you know, freshman in college age, and 1 year after college, 1 year after graduating with a bachelor's. Those are the ages, you know, that you're looking at here. And so the first episode, they spend 5 years in this bunker. So basically what happens is they show that rain comes down, rain hits human bodies, they convulse, and then they drop and they die. And that's it. Like, they don't turn into zombies, don't try to eat anybody, right? The rain comes down, you're hit with the rain, you go into convulsions, which might look to some people an attack, right? And then also one of the things is when people go into convulsions, one of the things they might do is they might like try to go towards somebody to say, help me, right? But they're not actually attacking them, right? And so that was kind of different, right? And this idea that, you know, it came with the rain. And then it was really interesting too, because later in the show, what it shows is that because it's dangerous when it's raining, the danger exists in the water, right? So one, rain is absolutely deadly. You'll just die, right? And then the other thing is, if you have an open wound and you get water on you, you'll die there as well, because the virus, the thing that's killing everybody, is in the water, right? Now, one thing that they go into is, and actually they really didn't deal with this in the show much, is water itself. How do they deal with, you know, with not having water? Well, they actually do deal with it in the show. They have to go from bunker to bunker, and they have to drink sealed water, right? They also don't explain is it safe to drink the water after it's boiled, right? And I was okay with the fact that they didn't, you know, explain that. As far as explaining every piece of hard science in it, like, as long, you know, you could have said, okay, well, they're just getting water from different sealed jugs that are already there. And, you know, and at this point, the vast majority of people are dead. So, and that is one thing that's really interesting is, what is it really like in an apocalypse? You know, and the reality is nobody really knows yet. We really haven't had, you know, any real apocalypses extended over a large nation for a long period of time, right? And so, but like, you know, is it, okay, everybody dies, but then since, you know, half the population or more are dead, there should be enough left for everybody, right? Or is it, you know, the warlords are going to sweep up all the good stuff and there's really nothing left, right? So, and one of the things, the way they handled this in the show was it was different in different places, which is probably going to be like that. So, you know, it was really interesting to see. So Simone and Rasmus, they are the son and daughter of this scientist. And this scientist, you get the idea, and so I'll explain what the cause is. At the very end, in episode 8, they tell us that essentially there was this company. They were you know, kind of like a pharmaceutical company, They're called Apollon. They had been searching for a cure. They actually found an incredibly dangerous, contagious disease, which they're still searching for the cure for, right? And one of the things that they did was they actually combined with like a military organization, and they actually created a way that you could seed this disease into rain and actually kill off an entire population. But you know, when they did this test, they thought they had the cure. They actually didn't have the cure, and what they had built is now essentially out of control. And there are a few high-end people in Rasmus, a few high-end people in Apollon who are still like in control and still making a lot of money off of this ability to strategically rain death down on any nation, you know, through this, you know, and what they have is they have the cloud seeding technology, and they have this incredibly deadly virus that kills on contact from water, right? So it can be absolutely devastating as a weapon, right? And so now, one of the things, though, is Simone and Rasmus are the son and daughter of one of the highest level technologists, right? Scientists in this organization. And Rasmus is completely immune to the virus. He is also a super deadly carrier of the virus. So anybody who touches any of it, so if any of his bodily fluids, if he spits on you, if his blood gets on you, any bodily fluid from him into you, or that goes onto you, right, on an area that's open, so it's like open wound to open wound, you'll die. You just die, right? And he's incredibly contagious, right? So so that's, you know, that's part of it, right? And in the beginning, Simone is charged by her father to take care of Rasmus, because the father understands that Rasmus is like essentially he is the cure for this entire thing. Anybody who has him can cure the virus, right? But the father hides the two of them away in one of the Apollon bunkers, and then makes it look to Apollon like they are dead, right? Now, the thing is, what's interesting is the reason why the father did this was he knew that if Apollon knew that the cure was within his son, they would kill his son and just essentially harvest him. They would keep him alive as a prisoner, or they would harvest him. They would harvest his corpse for as much of the cures they could get, and then they would synthesize it, right? So what he does is he puts Simone and Rasmus in a bunker. They hide literally for 6 years. They stay in the bunker for 6 years. So while all this chaos is going on outside, they've been away for 6 years in this bunker, right? But then one of the things that is once Simone and Rasmus go out into the world, right, they actually find that their father has been working with Apollon, and he has been doing these terrible, terrible experiments in order to find a cure, right? And the reason why is he's looking for someone else who contains the cure within their biological system, so that that other person can be harvested, so that the cure can come from that other person. And so their father, Simone and Rasmus's father, he has killed well over 100 people in this research he's done. Maybe even, yeah. So well over 100 people. And so essentially they sent out Apollon soldiers, and they would capture people. And then in the bunkers, they would do these studies to see if those people contain the cure, right? And so Simone and Rasmus's father has done this thing that, you know, his reason was that he wanted to save Rasmus, but he's killed 100 people in his research. So he's a monster. He's completely a monster. You can understand why he would choose to do this, but his actions are monstrous. You know, like, you could love your children, but you can't kill 100 people to save your one child. That's absurd, right? That's just terrible. More than absurd, it's villainous and evil, right? So, and I thought that was really interesting. And actually, Simone and Rasmus are actually confronted with all of this information, And their father says, you know, listen, we need to leave together. And Simone is like, you're a monster. You know, she does not say he's a monster. She says, we're not going anywhere with you. And she chooses to break off from him, right? And so at the end they do. Simone and Rasmus, and also I haven't talked about it, but Simone and Rasmus, once they leave the bunker, there's a period of about 6 months where they're kind of going around trying to solve the mystery of what's going on. Why is Rasmus special? What makes the virus contagious? Why are those things happening, right? And so they find this friend group who is really a salvager group. So one of these, you know, teams of people who travel the highways and byways, going from bunker to bunker, going from town to town, finding what they can to survive, and continuing to survive. And their friend group consists of a leader guy. He's always carrying like an AR-15. A follower guy. He has a pistol, right? And those two are the heavy hitters for the group. And then there is a club girl, and then there's a really religious girl, and then there's Shen. And Shen is a guy who is essentially, he has very sensitive, he has delicate sensibilities. He's very, like, he does not carry any weapons. He really doesn't fight. There's one or two exceptions to that when he gets really, really frustrated or frightened. He's almost like, you know, if you were to corner an animal, he'll fight then. And so Shen's really unique as well. He's almost like he's like a tag along, right? And everybody else in the group is doing what they can to pull their own weight, right? Well, what ends up happening is this group is incredibly, you know, like they have their whole situation honed down to a fine razor's edge, and they're a highly functioning, you know, scavenger group, except for Shen. You really get the idea of like, why is he there, right? And so they're going along and they're doing their thing, and they come across Simone and Rasmus. And Simone and Rasmus, they don't, you know, they come very close to killing Simone and Rasmus, but Simone is very persuasive, and the club girl and the religious girl in the scavenger group really grow to like her, like take an immediate liking to her, and say to leader guy and follower guy, we're going with these two. And they do. They go with Simone and Rasmus, and so does Shen, right? And then follower guy and leader guy come back and join. And then at that point, the scavenger group and Simone and Rasmus, the scavenger group really becomes Simone's group, right? And that's one of the most interesting aspects of the show is the scavenger guy, the leader guy from the scavenger group. He's like, you do whatever it takes to survive, right? And Simone is the exact opposite. She's like, you do whatever it takes to retain your humanity and not become a monstrous killer, right? And now Simone does learn that there are limits to this, right? So that you can't just be like this, you know, flower-loving person and show peace to everyone. And if you do, things are going to go real wrong real quick, right? And so the leader guy is like, you have to, at minimum, protect yourself. So maybe you're right, Simone. It's wrong to like steal from people, and it's wrong to show aggression where aggression isn't needed. But there's absolutely a need to protect what's yours and to protect, you know, overall what is right to be done. And so, you know, so from that perspective, it really is an excellent story, and it's really quite, you know, there's a lot there, right? Like there's a lot of back and forth between Simone and the leader guy of the scavenger group about debating what is the nature of. There's really a lot of big ethical questions that are addressed within this show, right? And one of the things is, like, I think when you walk away from it, the show is saying there's got to be a balance. You have to protect yourself. You have to have the means to protect yourself, and then also you you do need to strive to maintain your humanity, right? And I think that is going to be in any good apocalypse show is going to talk about this. You know, how much do you do to survive, and how much do you do to preserve your humanity? Because those two activities are generally going to be polar opposites. And so that's kind of interesting. There's also romantic relationships that happen between the different characters, which was interesting. Some of the things that happened during the journey between with the scavenger group and Simone and Rasmus. One of them was they visit this commune, and like it's these people who are like you know, like really into the inner light of someone's being and sharing, and they live like a commune, right? Well, you know, I've seen, you know, sometimes you've seen one too many apocalypse shows and you're like, oh, that's going to turn out really bad. And of course it does. They all get together for a communal meal, and it's discovered that they are eating human beings, right? That's how they're surviving. And the way this commune survives is, rather than everybody going out into the cities and the forests, right? They get these communes, and then people come to the commune, right? And when you come to the commune, you get to share in the meal, right? And then you eat the meal, and you're like, oh, that was great, thanks. And then they do this ritual where they say, oh, you just ate a human being, and guess what? We're all going to they take these flowers and they mix them up, they put them in a bowl, and everybody takes a flower. And if your flower has this small stone in it, then you're the next person to get eaten, right? And you're like, that's really interesting. Okay, so they're like, hey, you know, there's enough people just coming in off the street. We can just eat one person every, you know, that's going to be enough for a week, right? And the people who live there, who actually realize this, when they choose to live there and say, okay, well, we're cannibal, we're very dignified cannibals now. They actually, you know, they know what they're doing, and only the people who are actually, you know, coming into this situation are actually found out to be like, oh my goodness, you know, what's going on here? So, you know, so there's cannibalism in there, which you're going to deal with cannibalism in almost any apocalypse story. It's going to be there. It's like, you know, dirty rooms filled with trash and cannibalism and guns. You know, it's all part of it, right? You know, it's definitely part of it. So I really, really dug The Rain. It's really quite unique. It's a unique apocalypse story. It's the best Danish content I've ever watched by far. And it's just really, and also it was really nice to find it on Netflix, right? So I highly recommend The Rain. Take care.